The alarm screamed through the diplomatic vessel 3 seconds before the first impact tore through the hull. Queen Elena Carter barely had time to grip her command chair before the second strike sent her crashing against the bulkhead. Emergency lights flickered red across the bridge as her crew scrambled to their stations. Through the viewport, she saw them, 12 Krylox raider ships closing in like predators circling wounded prey. Her security chief, Marcus Webb, was already at her side, blood streaming from a gash above his eye. "They came out of nowhere, ma'am," masked their signatures until they were on top of us. Elena wiped debris from her uniform and accessed the tactical display. The Krylox were notorious pirates, but they rarely attacked human vessels. They preferred easier targets, species that folded quickly under pressure. "Open a channel," she ordered. The view screen crackled to life, revealing Commander Vex'thor, his chitinous faceplates clicking with what she'd learned was their equivalent of a smile. His 4 eyes gleamed with predatory satisfaction. "Human Queen," he said, his translator rendering his clicks and whistles into rough English. "Your reputation precedes you. We have been waiting for an opportunity like this." "You're making a mistake," Elena said calmly, though her heart hammered in her chest. "Release us now, and you'll live to regret this conversation instead of dying for it." Vex'thor's mandibles spread wider. "Threats? From a species whose bones break like dried twigs? Whose skin tears so easily?" He leaned forward. "We have studied you, human. You are fragile, emotional, weak, and today you will prove it." The transmission cut as another volley slammed into the ship. Elena felt the deck lurch beneath her feet. Their shields were failing. 3 minutes? Maybe less? She looked at Marcus, saw the same calculation in his eyes. They both knew what came next. "All hands prepare for boarding," Elena announced across the ship-wide channel. Her voice remained steady despite the chaos. "Remember your training. Remember who you are." The Krylox breached through the cargo bay 90 seconds later. Elena heard the firefight echo through the corridors, the sharp crack of human weapons answered by the hiss of plasma fire. Her personal guard formed a tight perimeter around the bridge, 8 men and women who had sworn to die before letting harm reach her. She wanted to tell them it wouldn't come to that, but she'd never been one for comfortable lies. The bridge doors exploded inward with a blast that sent 2 of her guards flying. Krylox warriors poured through the breach, their armored forms towering over the human defenders. The firefight was brutal and brief. Elena watched Marcus take a plasma bolt to the shoulder that should have killed him. He staggered, screamed, and kept firing. Dropped 2 raiders before a second shot caught him in the leg and put him down. When the smoke cleared, Elena stood alone among her fallen guards. Some were dead. Others were breathing but unconscious. Vex'thor entered the bridge flanked by 6 warriors, each standing nearly 8 feet tall. He approached Elena slowly, studying her with those alien eyes. "Your guards fought well," he admitted. "For humans. But pain stopped them, as it stops all inferior species." He gestured to Marcus, who lay bleeding on the deck. That one should be dead from shock alone, yet he fired until his body failed. Admirable. Futile, but admirable. Elena met his gaze without flinching. "If you wanted me dead, I'd be dead. What do you want?" "Information," Vex'thor said simply. "Human military positions, defense codes, supply routes." He stepped closer. "We know your species feels pain acutely, more acutely than most. Your nerve endings are densely packed. Your brain processes suffering with remarkable efficiency." His mandibles clicked. "This makes you easy to break." Elena felt cold metal restraints lock around her wrists as 2 Krylox guards seized her. They forced her to her knees. Vex'thor produced a device she didn't recognize, something that hummed with malevolent energy. "I will ask questions," he said. "You will answer. Or you will suffer beyond anything your fragile biology can endure. Do you understand?" "I understand that you've never fought humans before," Elena replied. "Not really." The first pulse of agony hit her like lightning through her nervous system. Every nerve ending ignited simultaneously. She felt her jaw clench, her muscles lock, her vision blur. The pain was exquisite, total, overwhelming. It felt like being burned alive from the inside out. And then, just as suddenly, it stopped. Vex'thor leaned down. That was level 1. There are 10 levels. Shall we continue or will you cooperate? Elena took a shuddering breath, forced her racing heart to slow. She looked up at him and smiled. Blood trickled from where she'd bitten her tongue. Level 2, she said. The confusion in Vex'thor's eyes was almost worth the subsequent torment. He triggered the device again, longer this time, and Elena felt her body convulse. Pain receptors that had evolved to warn humans of danger now became weapons against her. Her back arched. Her fingers clawed at nothing. Somewhere in the rational part of her mind, she catalogued the sensation, analyzed it, filed it away. Pain was just information. Injury was just data. She'd been trained for this since she was 16 years old. When it ended, she was gasping, sweat soaking through her uniform, but she was still conscious, still defiant. Is that all? She managed. Vex'thor's mandibles drew tight, a gesture of anger among his kind. Impossible. Your species should not be able to withstand this. The pain threshold alone should render you unconscious. You've been studying the wrong humans, Elena said. She spat blood onto the deck. Try level 5. Let's skip the foreplay. What followed was 30 minutes of systematic torture that would have broken any other species Vex'thor had encountered. He escalated through the device's settings, watching with growing disbelief as the human queen endured what should have been impossible. She screamed, yes. Her body shook and seized, but she never lost consciousness, never begged, never broke. By the time Vex'thor stopped, he was breathing hard, his own physiology stressed by the exertion of inflicting such suffering. Elena hung limp in the restraints, her face pale, her eyes unfocused. But when he asked again for military codes, she looked at him and laughed. It was a broken, ragged sound, but it was laughter. You don't understand, she whispered. Pain doesn't work on us the way it works on you. Before Vex'thor could respond, an explosion rocked the ship, then another, and another. His communication device chirped urgently. A panicked voice reported that human reinforcements had arrived. No, not reinforcements. The same humans from the convoy. The wounded guards who should have been dead or dying. They were breaching through the hull. They were fighting through the corridors. They were coming. Vex'thor stared at Elena in horror. Your guards? The ones we shot? They cannot possibly still be combat effective. You shot Marcus in the shoulder and the leg, Elena said. Neither wound hit anything immediately fatal, so he's still fighting. She saw the comprehension dawning in Vex'thor's eyes. You don't get it yet, do you? For most species, pain is a stop sign. For humans, it's just noise. The bridge doors, already damaged, exploded inward for the second time. Marcus Webb came through first, his left arm hanging useless, his leg bound with a crude tourniquet fashioned from his belt. He moved with a pronounced limp, but his rifle was steady and his eyes were clear. Behind him came 3 other guards, all bearing wounds that should have incapacitated them. One was missing half her hand. Another had burns covering 30% of his body. The third had taken a glancing plasma shot to the ribs that had melted through his armor. They were all still fighting. The firefight was close and vicious. Krylox warriors, confused and increasingly terrified, fired wildly. Human guards, their pain receptors screaming, their bodies failing, returned fire with mechanical precision. Marcus took another hit, this one creasing his skull and sending blood sheeting down his face. He blinked it away and kept shooting. The guard with the burned torso tackled a Krylox warrior twice her size, driving her combat knife into the gap in his armor, even as her own charred skin cracked and bled. Vex'thor watched his elite warriors fall to what should have been half-dead humans. He backed toward the door, his weapon forgotten. What are you? He breathed. Elena, freed from her restraints by Marcus, stood on shaking legs. We're what happens when evolution teaches a species that suffering is just part of survival, she said. She picked up a fallen rifle, checked the charge. Our ancestors hunted prey by running it to exhaustion. They survived ice ages, plagues, predators. We learned to push through pain because the alternative was extinction. Another Krylox rushed Marcus. The security chief, bleeding from at least 4 wounds, sidestepped with surprising grace and put 3 rounds center mass. The raider dropped. Marcus swayed but didn't fall. Plus, he added, his voice hoarse, the Queen's right. Pain is just information. I know I'm injured. Knowing doesn't change what I need to do. Elena advanced on Vex'thor, who found himself backed against his own console. His remaining warriors were dead, or fleeing. The bridge was littered with bodies, human and Krylox alike, but the humans were still standing, still moving, still dangerous. Let me explain something about human physiology, Elena said conversationally, though her hands trembled with shock and exhaustion. When we're threatened, our bodies flood with adrenaline, our pain tolerance skyrockets, our strength increases, our reaction time sharpens. We become temporarily much more than we are. She gestured to her guards. These people are running on that right now. They're ignoring signals that are screaming at them to stop, to lie down, to give up, and they'll keep fighting until their bodies literally cannot continue. Vex'thor's translator struggled with the sounds he was making, rendering them as something between fear and awe. This is not natural. This is not possible. It's very natural, Elena corrected. It's just not common. Most species evolved pain as an absolute limit, a hard stop to prevent further injury. Humans evolved pain as a suggestion. She leaned closer. And we evolved the ability to ignore suggestions when survival demands it. A human guard, the one missing half her hand, spoke up from where she was binding her wound. Her name was Lisa Zhang, and despite the blood loss, her voice was steady. We also train for this, Commander. From childhood, we're taught to embrace discomfort, to push past our limits. Every human soldier goes through conditioning that would break most alien species before they ever see combat. We run until our legs scream, Marcus added, reloading his weapon one-handed. We lift until our muscles tear. We fight until we can't stand. And then we learn to stand anyway. He smiled, a grim expression made ghastly by the blood on his face. By the time we're deployed, pain is just another tactical variable. Elena pressed the muzzle of her rifle against Vex'thor's primary chest plate. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to order your ships to stand down. You're going to release my vessel. And then you're going to leave? And if I refuse? Vex'thor asked, though there was no defiance in his voice. Then my guards will fight through your entire crew, Elena said simply. They'll take wounds that would kill any of your warriors and keep coming. They'll bleed and burn and break, and they won't stop until every single one of you is dead or they are. She paused. And even then, even if you manage to kill them all, you'll have learned the lesson. Hurting humans doesn't stop them. It just makes them angry. Vex'thor looked around the bridge at the wounded humans, at their steady hands and cold eyes, at the bodies of his own elite warriors who had fallen to opponents who should have been incapacitated. He saw Marcus Webb, who was almost certainly bleeding internally, standing ready to fight again. He saw Lisa Zhang, who had lost 3 fingers and hadn't even slowed down. He saw the burned soldier, whose exposed muscle tissue glistened wetly, checking ammunition calmly. He understood, finally, what he was facing. Not warriors, not soldiers, but a species that had weaponized suffering itself. I will withdraw, Vex'thor said quietly. I will tell my people what I have seen here. Good, Elena said. Tell them all. Tell every species that thinks humans are weak because we bruise easily, because we cry, because we feel pain so acutely. She lowered her weapon. Tell them that human pain is not a weakness. It's fuel. It's motivation. It's a reminder of what we've endured and what we can endure again. Vex'thor made his way to the communication console, moving carefully around the human guards who tracked him with their weapons. He sent the withdrawal order. Elena watched through the viewport as the Krylox ships began to pull back, one by one, until only Vex'thor's command vessel remained. Before he left, the Krylox commander turned to face Elena one last time. I have fought 17 species across 3 spiral arms, he said. I have seen warriors who cannot be killed easily. I have seen species with natural armor, with redundant organs, with regenerative capabilities. He paused. But I have never seen anything like this. You are fragile. By every measure, you should be easy to break. Yet you are the most terrifying thing I have ever encountered. That's because you're thinking about it wrong, Elena replied. She was pale now, the adrenaline beginning to fade, and she could feel every injury Vex'thor had inflicted. Pain washed over her in waves, nauseating and insistent. You see our fragility as weakness. You see our capacity to suffer as a vulnerability. She steadied herself against the console. But we learned long ago that the things that hurt us also make us stronger. Every scar is a lesson. Every wound is a reminder. Every moment of suffering teaches us that we can survive the next one. Marcus stepped forward, his voice rough. The Queen's being philosophical. Let me make it simple. He fixed Vex'thor with a stare. You can hurt us. You can make us bleed. You can break our bones and burn our flesh. But unless you kill us completely, immediately, we're going to keep coming. Because pain doesn't mean defeat to us. It just means we're still alive. Vex'thor nodded slowly, understanding crystallizing into something like respect. I will carry your message, he said, though I suspect many will not believe it until they learn the same lesson I have. Then they'll learn, Elena said. The hard way. The Krylox commander departed, and his ship joined the retreat. Elena watched them go, then finally allowed herself to collapse into her command chair. The adrenaline was gone now, and the pain was everything. Every nerve, ending where Vex'thor had tortured her, screamed in protest. Her muscles trembled with exhaustion. Her vision swam. Marcus was beside her immediately, pulling out medical supplies. Medical team is on the way, ma'am. Just hold on. I'm not going anywhere, Elena managed. She looked at her guards, at their wounds, at the blood they'd shed. Good work, all of you. You did humanity proud today. Lisa Zhang, her ruined hand now properly bandaged, smiled wearily. Just another day of proving we're tougher than we look, ma'am. The medical team arrived minutes later, and Elena surrendered herself to their care. As they worked to stabilize her and the other wounded, she reflected on what had just happened. Vex'thor would tell others. Some would believe, some wouldn't. Those who didn't would eventually encounter humans in combat and learn the truth themselves. She thought about the evolution of her species, about the countless generations who had survived impossible odds. Humans had clawed their way up from subsistence hunters to starfaring civilization not despite their vulnerability, but because of it. They'd learned to be creative, resilient, adaptable. They'd learned to endure. 3 weeks later, Elena stood before the Galactic Council, her wounds healed but her scars still visible. She wore them openly, refusing to hide the marks Vex'thor had left. The assembled representatives of a dozen species watched her with varying degrees of unease. The Krylox incident has been resolved peacefully, she reported. Commander Vex'thor has agreed to cease all hostile actions against human vessels in exchange for his life and freedom. One of the counselors, a Zentari diplomat named Korath, leaned forward. We have heard disturbing reports, Queen Carter. Reports that your guards fought on despite wounds that should have killed them. That you yourself endured torture that breaks most species. His crystalline eyes studied her. Some say this makes humans dangerous, unpredictable. Elena met his gaze steadily. Humans are dangerous, she agreed. But not because we're aggressive. We're dangerous because we don't quit, because pain doesn't stop us, because we've learned over millions of years that survival sometimes means pushing past every signal your body sends, telling you to give up. Another counselor spoke up, a Velkari whose translator rendered her concern clearly. This seems like a liability. If your species cannot recognize when to retreat, when to surrender, you will suffer needless casualties. We know when to retreat, Marcus Webb said from his position behind Elena's chair. We know when surrender is the smart choice, but we also know that sometimes the only way through is forward, and we're willing to pay the cost. Elena nodded. Every species has advantages. Some of you have natural armor, some have superior technology, some have lifespans that dwarf ours. She gestured to herself. We have the ability to endure what others cannot, to suffer and keep fighting, to turn our pain into determination. She let that sink in before continuing. I'm not here to threaten anyone. I'm here to ensure that no one makes the mistake Vex'thor made. No one should assume that because humans can be hurt easily, we can be stopped easily. Those are very different things. The council chambers were silent for a long moment. Then Korath spoke again, his tone thoughtful. You have given us much to consider, Queen Carter. Perhaps we have underestimated your species. Perhaps you have, Elena agreed. But you don't need to fear us. You just need to understand us. We're not conquerors. We're survivors. And we've gotten very, very good at it. As the council session ended and Elena prepared to depart, she caught Korath watching her with something that might have been respect. She nodded to him, then left with Marcus at her side. In the corridor, away from prying eyes, she finally allowed herself to wince. The injuries had healed, but phantom pains still lingered. You all right, ma'am? Marcus asked quietly. I will be, Elena replied. She touched the scar on her wrist where Vex'thor's restraints had bitten deep. Pain fades, but the lesson remains. What lesson is that? Elena smiled. That we're human, and that means something. Far across the galaxy, in a Krylox stronghold, Commander Vex'thor stood before his own council. They demanded to know why he had retreated, why he had released such valuable prisoners, why he had failed. He told them everything, about the torture that didn't break the Queen, about the guards who fought through mortal wounds, about the realization that pain, humanity's supposed weakness, was actually their greatest strength. Most didn't believe him. Some laughed. A few called him a coward. But those who saw the haunted look in his eyes, who noticed how his hands trembled when he described watching humans fight on despite injuries that should have killed them, those few understood. Humanity had taught Vex'thor something that would reshape his understanding of warfare, of survival, of what it meant to be strong. He had learned that sometimes the most dangerous opponent isn't the one who can't be hurt. It's the one who can be hurt but refuses to stop. And humanity, for all their fragility, all their vulnerability, all their capacity to suffer, would never stop. They would endure, adapt, and overcome, because that was what they had been doing since their species first looked up at the stars and decided to reach for them despite the impossibility, despite the pain, despite everything that said they couldn't. Vex'thor knew now what many would learn in the years to come. Humanity's pain was not their weakness. It was their promise. A promise that no matter how much they suffered, how grievously they were wounded, how impossible the odds seemed, they would keep fighting. They would endure, and that made them the most terrifying species in the galaxy.